Hello and welcome back to another edition of Jump To It for IrishRacing.com, where we're going to be previewing the weekend's action, mainly from Sandown. The highlight, of course, being the Tolworth Hurdle. We'll get to that later on in the show. We're also going to talk about a big race at Naas on Sunday. Now, joining me as ever to give the top tips and advice throughout the show, we have Stephen Harris from Betting Expert and Ed Quigley. Happy New Year, chaps. It's been a while since we actually last spoke on camera. Ed, I'll start with you. How are you getting on? And what are you looking forward to this weekend?
Yeah, Happy New Year, Joe. Yeah, indeed. Busy Christmas schedule with family, food, too much drink as ever, and lots of racing. Probably too much racing if you ask the wife, at least anyway. It's fair to say. But no, it's been a busy couple of weeks, as you say, into the new year now. And this weekend, naturally, a little bit of a quieter spell for the first couple of weeks in January, isn't it? Obviously, we've got the Tolworth Hurdle and the Lawlers of Naas, which are grabbing the attention. But as a general rule, a little bit of a quiet start to January. You know, Paul Nicholls gives a lot of his horses the flu jab. A few trainers take this fortnight to go and have a little winter break, etc., with the build-up to Cheltenham on the horizon. But, yeah, naturally, Tolworth Hurdle taking centre stage this weekend and very much looking forward to it.
And Stephen as well. I mean, Ed, you allude to it there. There's kind of a quieter season or the quieter weekend. But for you as a kind of pro punter, is this more like actually the bread and butter? You kind of got to get more involved in these kind of days.
Yeah, I mean, this week, Joe, the racing, there's been one jumps meeting a day, which is actually a real nice change, to be honest. It allows you to concentrate on the races and look back and, you know, catch up with all your notes from all the Christmas period. I mean, it's sort of manic time for about 10 days. Over Christmas, Boxing Day onwards, really busy. And January is always a bit of a quieter month. But, you know, you start looking at things for the future, start thinking about Cheltenham. And this weekend, actually, Sandown, we'll come to talk about do the card in a minute. But the ground there is soft at the minute. But we haven't had any rain at all, hardly, this week. But looking at the weather forecast for Saturday, it does look like sort of rain all day. So it could be one of those real slugfests up the Sandown Hill.
Well, that leads us nicely into, the first race we're actually going to talk about. So the 12:40 at Sandown. Now, Ed, I know you've got an eye on the odds-on favourite in this one, Love Envoy, looking at the festival as well. Just take us through your thoughts on the race.
Yeah, indeed. Love Envoy's around 4-9, isn't she? She looks the obvious play here. Love soft ground. Stephen does make a good point. It's officially soft at the time of recording on the Friday morning. Good to soft in places on the chase course, but I don't think any of that good will be around looking at the weather. There's a good up to, depending on which weather forecast you look at, up to 8 millimetres forecast throughout Saturday. So, you know, the Sandown Hill won't be taking any prisoners by the time they go to post, I think it's fair to say. And in regards to the hurdle track, that's going to be absolutely fine for Love Envoy. Obviously, she's unbeaten at Sandown. She absolutely loves the mud. I remember when she won here this time last year, you know, again, like 8 pairs of goggles on for the jockeys, and she powered up the hill in that grade 2. So, look, it's just a case of whether you think further forward, has she got the tools in the locker on off-level weights at the festival to be troubling the likes of Marie's Rock, potentially Honeysuckle, Epitante, if they all clashed. In the moment, she's 8-1, kind of fourth favourite there or thereabouts. On official figures, she's got a little bit defined. I suppose you've got to ask yourself, A, how much more improvement is there in the locker? And can she do it on a potentially quicker surface if you're keen on her chances for the festival? The flip side, looking at it, is if she comes out and just absolutely routs them here, she's going to get cut regardless. And she could be vying for pushing for favouritism with a devastating performance here. So lots of different angles, really. The race in itself, not really one to be having a bet on, but if you do think, and your view is, Love Envoy is going to turn up and absolutely destroy them, then the 8-1 for the Mayor's Hurdle at the festival will disappear in an instant, regardless of whether the ground's going to be good to firm or heavy in 9 weeks' time. So, yeah, she's a wonderful mare. And also, worth very quickly just touch upon the Harry Fry form. Joe, he went for a bit of, how should we say, through the doldrums a little bit when he changed yards and everything, and a lot of his horses were not firing, but he's back. He's had a great start to January. He's already fired in 3 winners from his last 12 runners. So, yeah, the yard of inverted commas turned a corner to some respect, which does bode well as we head into 2023.
Yeah, as I'm just trying to highlight here on the screen as well, you'll be able to see the form of Harry Fry on IrishRacing.com. So 27% strike rate in the last 21 days. Very good going. And Stephen, just to get your thoughts as well on the race, or has Ed basically covered everything?
No, Ed's spot on. I mean, it's a complete match. 2 runners only, 2 possible winners, really, barring 2 fallers. It looks sort of 9-4 on and 9-4 against. I think that's probably about right. I wouldn't want to lay Love Envoy. As Ed said, Harry Fry is flying. He's had 4 winners in the last 14 days. They're all running really well when they're getting beat. Whereas Lucy Wadham, who trains the only other conceivable runner, Martello Sky, she's 0 from 13 in the last fortnight. And really, I haven't really noted many of them running that well. Also, from a form point of view, both of them obviously heavy ground Sandown winners. Love Envoy's run last time out here in a handicap under a big weight was a cracking effort. The runner-up Playful Saint of Nichols has come out and won pulling a bus at Leicester in very impressive style. So that form's red hot. The flip side is Martello Sky got lapped by Miranda last time out, completely stuffed and disappointing, I thought. And Miranda has run very badly since as well. So that form looks very cold. So we're not saying anything clever, but I think sort of 2-1 on Love Envoy is probably a very fair price.
Absolutely. I think, well, that covers it quite nicely. So let's move on to the next race on the card as well, the 115. Now here we've got the favourite, Je Mirand. I wanted to look at the form of PJB, though, behind it, because it fell last time out at Haydock, and I thought, just watching back that race as well, I mean, the conditions were pretty awful. So, Ed, I mean, how much do you look at the form in terms of, you see the F there, it fell, you think, oh, maybe it doesn't work out. But, I mean, the weather conditions that day were pretty terrible. So, I mean, does that actually come into your thinking, looking beyond just the form figures? Do you actually want to try and look at the race as well to try and get some idea of why it may have not performed as well as it could have?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was still relatively early on in that Haydock race, wasn't it? I think it was the 7th fence in which PJB fell at. But as you say, ground conditions in themselves shouldn't be a problem. I mean, this individual won his bumper on deep ground, and it was pretty testing when winning at Sedgefield as well. So the ground in itself shouldn't be a problem. We've always harp on about Sandown form on this show, don't we? As it's one of the most idiosyncratic tracks in the country. And I mean, this horse was absolutely devastating when winning the novice race last season here. Power clear by about 10 lengths or something off the top of my head in the closing stages. So track holds no fears, the ground holds no fears. I suppose it's fences which hold the fear. That's probably where the Achilles heel could be. I had the 2 starts over fences. Didn't look, how should we say, looked as though he was learning a great deal on the job at Carlisle and Chase debut, but then was in the process of running much better race. Second time out, as you say, that race you alluded to at Haydock, stepped up in trip, probably came on for the seasonal reappearance. And obviously, it was far too early on in the race to know how PJB would have fared. So it's going to be interesting that the market kind of hasn't missed him, really. You look at it, best price kind of 4-1 for a horse who's been beaten a distance and then fallen. Naturally, I'm looking around for something a bit bigger, but it's that type of trappy race, really. I think the market generally going towards Venetia's horse who won last time out. But outside of that, I think it could be a case you could kind of throw a blanket over 4 or 5 of these. It does look very competitive.
And for you, Stephen, as well, I mean, would you be with the favourite here?
Well, Dead 8, it's got an attractive look to it, the race. I mean, Jemiran, Venetia, we've talked about her before. As soon as the ground turns testing, she hit form. Unfortunately, then had the big freeze just as she was really flying, but she's come back. She had a couple of winners this week. Her horse are running well. Jemiran is a lightly raced, progressive chase, was impressive from the front at Southall. I mean, Southall and Sander, absolute chalk and cheese. Not guaranteed to get a soft lead on this occasion, but obviously open to improve. I couldn't back it under 2-1. I thought the interesting one here was, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Scipion, is it? Scipion of Tom Lacey?
Tom Lacey,
yeah, another yard going really well. Lightly raced over hurdles last season. I quite like the fact with Scipion that he stays 3 miles very well in bad ground, and this can be a real slog, especially if we get rain all day on Saturday. He's run once over fences, so perhaps his inexperience might be a negative, but he ran okay. He finished last at 3 behind Quendo Ketu, who's a prolific winner in the north over the last few months, not stopped winning. And Scipion jumped perfectly well and just got tired from 2 out of Utoxeter. I thought it was a pretty good start over fences. I mean, I don't think he's outstandingly well handicapped, I have to say, but I think he's open to a bit of improvement. Maybe each way, 7 or 8-1, as long as we get 8 runners. The yard's going well. Stan Shepherd booked. I think he should run a good race.
Great. And speaking of a horse that you think should run a good race, we're going to move on to your nap of the weekend, Stevens. This is in the 150 at Sandown. Take us through your thoughts on this race. One that actually stood out for me at a bigger price, just to get my input in. Dreams of Home here. So, yeah, look at the form here. It's no stranger to the winners enclosure. I mean, it's won a lot of races. So I just wonder why, perhaps, Stephen, before we get to your nap, why would Dreams of Home be a double-figure price, given that form?
Well, first of all, Donald McCain, anything south of Bangor, you normally need a search party to try and find them. And secondly, he's won a couple of Mickey Mouse races at Kelso and Perth. And while I was bore everyone to tears that the Irish form is a stone better than the English form, I would say the English form is probably nearly a stone better than the Scottish form. So anyway, no, he's open to improvement, Dreams of Home. He's running really well, but he is miles up in class here. And generally speaking, they don't tend to do that well when they come down south. Funnily enough, the horse I'm going to tip up and nap for the whole weekend is Corrigine Rock, who's trained by a northern trainer as well, Lucinda Russell. But this one, actually, the owners of this horse are all sort of Isha regulars. They're Sandown members, and they really like their horses running down here. So when Lucinda has one, they often run at Sandown. And Corrigine Rock, who fell on his chasing debut, I was on at Perth. He jumped absolutely superbly, which is a strange thing to say about a horse who then fell. But he was one of those sort of unlucky falls where he grabbed at it. It was the first fence in the straight at Perth, I think, and he didn't really see the fence, more or less just took off and was blindsided into it. He's come back. He was unimpressive in scrambling home at Kelso next time out, but a lot went wrong there. He was harried on the lead. He didn't jump that fluently. The track was sharp enough for him. He was a revelation here at Sandown last time out over this course and distance. He jumped absolutely superbly from the front under Derek Fox, and that's what I think he'll do again here. I think he'll have these in trouble a long way out. He is now up to a career high mark, but he's got loads of scope to keep on improving. The form of his latest win, the tailed off third, well, not tailed off, Rose C has got beaten 11 lengths by our selection, has come out and bolted up at Fontwell, and the horse who was tailed off, Glondor Bertie, has come and run well in defeat as well behind Rose Cias. So the form's got quite a solid look to it. Arguably, this is a slightly better race, but you're getting 3-1 your money, and I think he'll lead, and I think he'll jump well, and he'll be getting half lengths off these rivals at every fence if he can put in another immaculate round of jumping.
And Grey Diamond doesn't worry you in this race at all?
Well, Grey Diamond could be a nose on the lead. Yeah, I respect his claims, and I thought Venetia's was probably actually the danger. Frere Banbu, who's only who's inexperienced. He's got more experience. 14 runs, 3 wins, goes on the ground. Maybe took a step back second run, but still ran okay first time out. So yeah, and Sandown form in the past as well. So that might be the main danger. But I just think from a sort of betting point of view, Corrigine Rock could be 3 or 4 lengths clear, winging the first with the railway fences to come. He could be 6 or 7 lengths clear in a short price. Nice
one. And Ed, any thoughts for you as well?
I'd just be a little bit nervous about Corrigine Rock on the ground, funnily enough, for one of Lucinda's. The only win over hurdles came on very quick ground at Kelso. And then it was pretty decent when winning at Kelso again. And it wasn't all that bad for the Tingle Creek meeting last time out. If we do get the upper end of the weather forecast and this just turns into a bit of a swamp, I think that swings it towards Venetia's horse here, who will run in treacle. A quicksand handicap would be absolutely perfect for this horse. No problem at all. I mean, at Lingfield last year, was it that Winter Millions meeting, wasn't it? I mean, the ground was absolute joke. I mean, it was so deep. Ferrero Bombo just plows through it. So, I slightly disagree with Stephen in regards to that. And the run last time out at Ascot, although finishing 4th, it doesn't look too bad in hindsight, was trying to give weight to Boot Hill, who's since gone on to land a big prize in a Grade 2 at Kempton. So that form, I think, for hindsight, is probably a little bit better than the initial feeling in the aftermath of the race. So a bit of a weather watch for me. If the rain does miss, then yeah, I think Corrigine Rock, no doubt, is a wonderful jumper when on song. I think Grey Diamond's probably a little bit short. Ferrero Bombu, if the rains arrive, I wouldn't be shocked if there was a bit of a gamble on that individual when he went off favourite. So basically going to try and tap into my inner Michael Fish, guess the weather, and I'm probably leaning towards the Venetia horse here on the assumption the ground does get deep.
Lovely. All right. Well, one horse that maybe you're a bit more confident on, Ed, runs in the next. So we're going to talk about the Tolworth Hurdle, of course. So take us through it, Ed. Your tip or your nap of the weekend goes in this one.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. Obviously, the complexion of this race has changed dramatically in the last 48 hours or so with anti-post favourite Lucia for Nikki Henderson, of course. So she's also favourite for the Mares Novice Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival. She scoped badly, so misses the race. So that's kind of blown it wide open in many respects. Authorised speed, your 9-4 market leader, Tamuras, has been well supported in recent days for the Paul Nicholls team. But I've got my eyes on here, the third in. Arctic Brazil for Henry de Bromhead, and interesting Rachel Blackmore coming over to take the ride. I thought this horse looked very impressive when admittedly winning a maiden hurdle at Cork, but the manner in which he tanked around and quickened up in deep ground in the closing stages, I thought was very taking personally. Now, interesting listening to Henry de Bromhead's thoughts in the aftermath that he nominated the Moscow Flyer Novice Hurdle, but he's decided to come here for a novice hurdle, unless I'm mistaken. I was looking back through the history books. Wouldn't usually be the kind of port of call for Henry de Bromhead to bring one to the Tolworth. So I thought it was fascinating they're bringing him here. He's a Blue Brazil who's the kind of sire of the moment, isn't he? He's firing in winners right, left and centre. And I just think this horse, I just think he's a little bit underrated in the market. I totally respect authorised speed. He arrives here on a hat-trick, looks good, will handle the ground, has got the course form and everything. But there was just that kind of, it's a subjective view rather than anything you can really quantify, Joe. It was just something about the way Arctic Brazil went round last time at Cork. He was plenty keen enough in the early stages. And whenever you got a horse do that in soft ground, you worry as if the petrol tank's going to empty and the horse is going to be running on fumes when push comes to shove. But despite that keenness, Rachel Blackmore asked him to go and win his race. And he put lengths on his rivals in a matter of strides. I just think 7-2... he's twice the price of the market leader here. I think that could be a little bit disrespectful. A little bit of a question mark about some of the Henry de Bromhead runners, but he's been firing in the winners in amongst them, if you like, including Manella Indo, obviously, was a welcome return to form. So I think that the stable form's been a little bit overplayed personally, and I think there are valid excuses with some of his bigger stars not performing over the Christmas period. So yeah, Arctic Brazil for me, a really exciting type. I respect pretty much 3 or 4 of these in the field. I think they've all got really good chances, including Colonel Harry, who could go well at a big price for the Jamie Snowden team. Obviously, we caught up with Jamie for the Irish Racing Stable Tour back in October, and he gave a little pointer to this horse and said thought he could be a nice type. Well, here he is running in a Grade 1, and he comes here on the back of a devastating success over course and distance last time out on very deep ground. Again, that was in a very weak race. However, did it in very good style. So, yeah, really exciting race. No doubt there'll be plenty of winners coming out of this, going on to targets later on in the season. But I'm going with, Rachel Blackmore and Henry de Bromhead to topple the more fancy protagonists in the lineup.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ed, you must have read Stephen's notes because his long shot is actually Colonel Harry. So just take us through your thoughts, Stephen. Yeah. Do you echo those sentiments as well?
Well, I just think Colonel Harry is a big price. I mean, he's probably going to be sort of 50 or bigger on the betting share. I mean, this is one of those races the firms have priced it up, obviously, since Lucia was taken out. And I think the front 3 are, certainly the front 2 are tight enough. I mean, obviously, Gary Moore's authorised speed was very impressive over course and distance, but that was a pretty weak race he won, and he was wide on the best of the ground. The Nicholls horse at Haydock did win quite well in the end, but he wasn't that fluent chumping a few of the hurdles, and he was niggled along quite a long way out. The runner-up Sizing Potts has been absolutely tailed off twice since. I know the third Snake Roll has come out and won in the north. I'm not sure that form's bomb-proof. I have no idea about Henry de Bromhead's horse. I did watch it win, and Ed's absolutely right. He's extremely impressive. Hard to know what the form's worth, but, slight niggling about the stable form. More the fact, the horse Envoy Alain ran so badly coming over to the UK, and he has had quite a few disappointments. I mean, I looked just now, he's had 5 winners from his last 54 runners in the last fortnight, which, he's had 5 winners. He's not out of form by any means, but that 9% strike rate is probably a little bit, quite a bit lower than you would be hoping. Although, saying that, they're running in 30 runner races in Ireland, aren't they? Half of them. So perhaps it's not that bad. I massively respect his. I just thought Colonel Harry, he cost 130 grand. I think he's slightly underrated because he's sort of Jamie Snowden and not Paul Nicholls or Henry de Bromhead, to be honest. He was really impressive at Sandown in heavy ground. last time out. He's been given time to recover from that. He's going to get a positive front running ride, which is a good thing. I mean, he's up 10 grades. He's not a certainty at all. He could be completely outclassed. That would be quite likely. But I think at sort of 33.50 to 1, the disparity on form between the front ones and 3 or 4 others. I mean, Ed said he's absolutely right. There's other horses here. Blow Your Wad is extremely promising. Lastro Boy has won both starts for Evan Williams. I mean, Evan Williams has got lovely young horses in those rucker colours this season. He could have run probably 5 in this race. Very significant. He's come down to Sandown with Lastro Boy. So I don't think it's a 9-4, 9-4, 3-1 race. I suspect this will be one of those races, a bit like the King George over Christmas. We're talking about it thinking the front 2 are far too short, and they were. That doesn't mean they won't finish first and second, but I suspect the market will correct by the time we jump off on Saturday.
Wow, really interesting stuff. And obviously, that said, it comes with a lot of experience with you two on the panel, which leads me nicely on to the next race on the card, the Veterans Handicap Chase. Now, Ed, we've spoken about Ballyandy in the past as well. Goes in this one. Just tell us why you think he's got a good, a potential long shot of the day.
Yeah, I mean, he's a long shot because he does, at times throughout his career over fences, he's jumped like a kind of air conditioning unit, hasn't he? I mean, he just runs into fences, his legs don't come up, etc., etc. He's never been able to replicate his very top hurdles form to fences. And if you were going to name probably 3 tracks in the country where you need to be able to jump, well, Sandown would probably be in the top 3, one of the most difficult jumping courses in the country. Well, why am I tipping him? Because I think the ground is key to him, essentially. I just want loads of rain to arrive here. It's becoming more and more apparent. He's getting very fussy as he's getting older. I think he's won 4 times in as many years, 4 times in the last 4 years, and that's all come on the ground with soft or heavy somewhere in the going description. Especially over fences, I think it's even more key, where I think he's going to need everyone to slow up, if you see what I'm saying. He's obviously never been as good over fences. He's yet to win, but as a consequence, he's on a pretty fair chase mark in comparison to his hurdle form, off 141. I think he's just going to want some proper deep ground. If it keeps raining, off 141, even allowing for the fact he's obviously 12 now, I mean, they're all veterans, but I think he's going to have his conditions. And also, I think 3 miles is a big tick in the box. You go back to that Perth run on his seasonal reappearance, it wasn't all that bad, if truth be told, over the 3. Came back to 2.5 last time out in the veterans race at Cheltenham and just looked a bit outpaced before kind of hitting the hill in the closing stages and going up it. Again, that was on pretty lively ground, and to his credit, he got round well enough round Cheltenham over 2.5 on quick ground. I want keep raining over 3 miles. I think it's a wide open race, but he's a double figure price. I saw 12 to 1 floating around. Sam Nigel Twister Davis teaming up. If the rains miss and there's good somewhere in the going description, like put it out there now, just forget the tip. I'll be leaving him. But on deep ground, he will stay, and he's got a touch of class, and I think he's well handicapped. So when you factor all that in, and you think he's 12 to 1, is a big tick in the box for me. Just a final point as well, Joe. I think there are a few others in here where, how should we say, they may have their eyes on slightly, I say, bigger targets, but other races further down the line, you know, Snow Leopardess, they're talking about Aintree again, Ramses de Tele, looking at some other long-staying tests. And I wonder whether it would be an interest of connections there to go and totally smoke the handicap mark if you're looking to try and win a Midlands National or Grand National, you see what I'm saying? Whereas Ballyandy, this is going to be his bread and butter if it's deep ground. So yeah, Ballyandy, 12 to 1 each way for me. On the proviso, the word good is nowhere near the going description.
Well, let's see how successful your rain dance can be then tonight. So let's move on. Stephen, actually, did you have any insight into this race as well? Do you echo some of Ed's thoughts?
Well, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Ed said. At the minute here, the sun's shining. I mean, the forecasts are terrible on Saturday. We've said already, but I can imagine Sandown probably heading towards good to soft at the moment. I mean, it can become testing quickly. I mean, I like a moan, Joe. You may have noticed over the last few years, but these veterans chases have been absolutely fantastic. They're probably one of the best innovations that racing's come up with. I mean, it's probably about the only innovation in truth. But 18 runners, 100 grand on offer. This is a fantastic spectacle. And of course, the beauty of jump racing is, Ed and I love jump racing a bit more than the flat in truth, is you get these old favourites coming back year after year. Now, Ballyandy, Ed's tipped. I've got to go to confession quickly here. I backed him to win the Champion Hurdle in 2020.
Yeah.
I think it was about a 33-1 chance. He led. He ran quite well. Just got tired from the home turn. That's only 2.5 years ago. I mean, he's only run 7 times over fences. He's more props than the local Christmas Panto, unfortunately, with Ballyandy over fences. I can't see him putting in a clean round. He's a hesitant jumper. He always has been. He's extremely well handicapped. If for some reason on a swamp he really did put in a clean round of jumping, I agree with Ed. He'd have to go close. He ran well first time out. The one I actually like is Snow Leopardess. I mean, I can't pretend it's going to be a big betting race, this. I think it's a brilliant race to watch. But Snow Leopardess basically had an excuse pulling up first time out. It was basically first run of the season, really, when finishing 8th back at Aintree last time out. I thought she ran really well. She just got tired about half a mile out, having jumped superbly, unable to dominate. She won that Beecher Chase, didn't she, last year at Aintree, jumping superbly under really attacking ride. And I think round Sandown, she could be some spectacle. And Charlie Longston, another yard that usually sinks without trace as soon as we get beyond about August, has actually been having winners in the last few weeks. They're going really well. And I think I disagree slightly there about future targets. This race is worth 100 grand, and all these they're all 11 or 12. They're all none of like the rest of us. They're not getting any younger. And I think Snow Leopardess will be fully primed to try and make all the running. But I mean, I think this is a 10-1 the field race, a genuinely really, really hard handicap.
But again, maybe more for, like you mentioned as well, the spectacle of it. It should be a really good race to actually watch and enjoy as race fans. Now let's move on to the last race we're going to talk about at Sandown. So this is obviously the last on the card, the 3:35. Now, Stephen, I want to get your thoughts on this as well, because I'm betting expert. You picked out Paul Nicholls type on this one. Just take us through it.
I really like ICO here. Typical Paul Nicholls. Arrived from France. With quite a big reputation. I think he won in Dieppe back in August 2021. He won first time out at Kempton on soft ground and then ran twice afterwards, highly tried in graded company, not disgraced. I think he needs a stiffer test of stamina. I think he's very much a stayer. His win in France came over 2 mile 1 in deep ground, so no worries at all about Sandown. It will certainly be the stiffest track he's run on. He starts off into handicaps here from a pretty lenient looking mark. He's hooded. He always is hooded. I think he certainly could have had a few pounds higher. He's bound to be fit. Nicholls is so good on these Saturdays. I think it's either him or the Venetia Williams trained J-Lo, who did get beat at a very short price in bad ground at Haydock. I think he was 3-1 on, but he got brushed aside by Jungle Jack. But that's actually helped his handicap mark. Since that time, Venetia's really hit form, and J-Lo could be open to loads of improvement as well. So they'd be my two. But I think ICO, who could be sort of 5-1, hopefully, be a fair bet.
And Ed, for you, any kind of angle for the race as well?
No, I'm finding this one a bit tricky, to be honest with you, Joe. I mean, ICO, fascinating sort. I was there on the rails that day. I think you sent off second favourite behind Pied Piper for the Triumph Hurdle trial at Cheltenham. It was, January of last year. And I had Stephen's words ringing through my head when Pied Piper came home 40 lengths hard-held ahead of ICO with the 3 stone ahead of the English form just ringing around in my ears. But no, Stephen's right, though. This is a much more suitable task for him. He's been given time by Paul Nicholls. Paul Nicholls was... he was saying it during the week, the importance of you can try and push the button too soon and too quickly with some of these horses. You've got to let them develop, and they'll tell you when they're ready to win races. And this is a much more, it's gone from swimming with sharks to, dipping around in the shallow end here. This is a much more feasible opportunity. So yeah, I'm not had to play myself, but yeah, I wouldn't be putting in any negative for ICO, put it that way.
All right, fair enough. And also the big race of the weekend as well over in Naas. So the 220, as you kind of touched on as well in the intro to the show, Ed, the Lalos of Naas. Now, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. It's quite interesting. We're doing the show before the declarations. So we don't know exactly who's running. But Grangeclair West and Gaelic Warrior obviously heading the market. Paul Townend won on them both last time out. So I wonder if you get your thoughts on basically who he'd ride in the race. I assume it would be Grangeclair West. But just take us through your thinking.
Yeah, indeed. Unfortunately, by the time this show comes out, we'll know the declarations. But as you say, so a little bit of guesswork here. But I mean, Gaelic Warrior, it was a Tremor maiden hurdle. It was a nothing race, but it was an 86th length win You don't see that every day in a 10-runner encounter. And the stopwatch celebrities, the timepiece gurus, tell me it was set in there was smoke coming out of the stopwatches on the back of that. It was done in a very quick time, and that horse is already being obviously quoted up for the Ballymore. He was the Twitter horse, wasn't he, last year for the Cheltenham Festival? You know, before the horse was even born, there were people backing him for the Boodles. I think he went off 13-8 favourite, didn't he, in the Boodles, and got done a short head by Brazil. There was an eerie silence in the aftermath of that. But anyway, look, it was a great comeback, wasn't it? Albeit in a weak race. I don't know who's going to ride. Well, I suppose I said it will be revealed when this show's out. I mean, Grange Clare West and Beaton Sort cost a fortune. Very impressive at Navan last time out. Naturally, Willie Mullins with a very strong hand. Gavin Cromwell's horse shouldn't be dismissed. In other way you're thinking, that horse is going to run. Connections have confirmed. Won at Gorham Park last time out. Gavin Cromwell, quote, thinks the horse should thrive up in trip. So definitely one to take note of there. And yeah, look, all in all, no view on it from a win perspective, as we don't really know who's going to line up. But if there was a horse for the future in there, I think 3-Car Bragg is going to be a really good stayer in time. So I'll be keeping your eyes on that horse over 3 miles later on in the season. But yeah, it's always an informative race. One I'll definitely be keeping a close eye on.
Great stuff. Well, that kind of wraps it up for our previews of individual races. We've also covered some of the tips, but Stephen, let's go through your 3 tips of the weekend, please.
Yeah, it's really good racing, good quality racing, and not too busy either. I start at Sandown with my betting expert Nap in the 150. This is Corrigine Rock. I don't totally agree with Ed, actually. I think soft ground's fine. He ran at Sandown over hurdles on bad ground and finished second in his earlier days, so I'm not worried about soft ground. I don't think he'll get too bad either. He's a bold front runner. Hopefully, he'll get another positive attacking ride from Derek Fox and make all the running. He is now up to a career high mark in a better race, but I think he'll take plenty of stopping. I'm going over to Wincanton for my value angle selection in the 130 Galahad Quest, who's a double figure price. He ran really well first time out when finishing second in a small field. The horse who was about 2 fences behind him there, Paint the Dream, has come out since and bolted up at Newbury. I think the form's quite good. He was then given a negative ride in a red-hot Cheltenham handicap. I think you can forget that run. His marks come down a pound or 2. He's getting weight all round. He's a double-figure price. I think he'll get a much more positive ride from David Noonan at this sharp right-handed track, and I think he'll go really well. Jane Williams, her horses are running well now, having been quiet for most of the summer and autumn. And then the long shot, bit of a shot in the dark, in the 225 at Sandown, the big race of the weekend. Colonel Harry, brilliant small trainer Jamie Snowden, done it over course and distance, done it on heavy ground, miles up in grade here, but I'm slightly surprised at the sort of price disparity between him and the front of the market.
Lovely stuff. Well, best of luck for your tips. And Ed, we'll move over to yours because your value angle is actually in the same race as Stephen's, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Might as well kick off with the value angle first, I suppose. Yeah, I'm taking Stephen on with Kilteely Briggs. Funnily enough, for the aforementioned Jamie Snowden, just that yard who could do little wrong at the moment. I just think that horse, flat tracks, cutting the ground, 2.5 miles. They're all big ticks in the right boxes. He just listened to Jamie talking about Kilteely Briggs, who's bred to be a Grand National horse. But every time they go up to 3 miles plus, the horse just runs on fumes and doesn't get home. It's just a quirk of the pedigree, if you like. 2.5 is his trip. That's his type of race, flat track round Wincanton. So I think he's a bit of value there. Yeah, I've gone with Arctic Brazil as my nap in many ways. A little bit of guesswork, but I kind of echoing Stephen's thoughts. I think the market's going a little bit overboard about the top 2, with a whole host of unexposed, exciting types in against them. And I say there was just something about the way in which Arctic Brazil cruised round last time out. Makes me think there's a lot of latent ability under the bonnet there. And then, yeah, the long shot. My lovely old friend Bally Andy running in the, champion bumpers once upon a time and supreme novice hurdles chasing on the likes of Mellon. That's how long ago he's been knocking around. I want deep ground for him. I want Stephen's garden flooded a couple of miles down the road from the Isha venue. I want to see a swamp because I think it will just slow them up. And as I said, he's round of jumping. He put in a couple of poor leaps last time at Cheltenham, but by and large, it was quite encouraging. Over 2.5 on good ground, and he did come up the hill strongly. I think up to 3 here on deep ground, off 141. I was just looking through his hurdle form, nearly 160 over hurdles. despite his advancing years, he's a very well handicapped chaser. So, yeah, Ballyandy, the long shot with the rain arriving.
Perfect stuff. Well, best of luck as well to you, Ed. Thanks a lot for your insight. And by the way, also, as always, we'll be back on Monday for our review show of the weekend's action with Vincent Finnegan, Johnny Ward and Emma Nagel. Subscribe to Irish Racing for plenty more betting tips and lots more content coming your way in 2023. But that wraps it up for this edition of Jump to It. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again very soon.